dominant cultural norms are not seen as racialized norms, are they? They're seen as universals, right? So the things that white folks do and think are appropriate that we think is just like universally good and obvious for everyone, but it isn't. Our assumptions, our norms are just as racialized as anybody else. Our assumptions, for instance, about what constitutes a good education. Well, in dominant white Western culture, a good education is what allows you to get a good job, to be financially successful. It isn't necessarily, or even usually, what would allow you to live in harmony with the environment, with nature, or to live in harmony with your community. Those are not seen as important values within the dominant cultural framework. They are certainly of importance to Indigenous and First Nations peoples. They are certainly of importance to many non-white, non-Western cultures, but the assumption that we make is that we know what a good education is by God, and we're going to tell you. And then if you'll work hard enough, you'll be able to attain it. But all of these other side issues about building community, about building healthy and responsive and sustainable communities, about living in harmony with the ecology, all of that stuff is soft, you know, that stuff isn't the really important kind of thing we need to be teaching. The assumptions that the dominant culture makes about what a person should have to know in order to be competent or to be qualified for a particular job. If you think about the way that the dominant culture looks at this very issue of qualifications within the job market, or within the educational market for that matter, you can see that it's not nearly as objective as the dominant culture would like us to believe. So for instance, we think on the one hand that it makes perfect sense when people are applying for jobs that they should be the most qualified to get the job. And we think we know objectively what it means to be the most qualified. Right? Well, to be the most qualified is to have the most years of experience. Why? To be the most qualified is to have the most seniority. Why? To be the most qualified is to have had the most accomplishments in this realm or that realm. It's easy, you know. You can look at a resume or a vita and you can tell just by looking, because it's objective. Or you can look at a standardized test score and you can know who the best student is because it's objective. You can look at their grades and you can know who the best student is because it's objective. And yet none of this is objective. All of it is contingent heavily on one's access to an opportunity structure or lack thereof. After all, if I've had more opportunity within a labor market than someone else, I'm supposed to have a better resume. That is part of the gig. Right? If I've had more opportunity within the educational system and the labor market, I'm supposed to look better on paper. That's the point. Likewise, if I have a 5-lap head start on you in an 8-lap race, I am supposed to cross the finish line first. And if I don't, there's something seriously wrong with me. If I start out 5 laps ahead and only end 4 laps ahead, I technically won in a winner-take-all competition, which is what the dominant culture's economic system is based upon. But if I start out 5 laps ahead and only end 4 laps ahead, by definition, I was the slower runner. I am not the one who should get patted on the back for being such a marvelous athlete, you see. So when we think about qualifications, when we think about competence, we're using standards that actually have a lot to do with one's access or lack thereof. It is not objective, but we like to believe that it is, and we like to believe that we can rank human beings from 1 to 300 million in the case of the United States, and we just sort of know where you fall in that, you know? And that's all because the dominant culture doesn't have to ever interrogate its norm.